What's up everybody, man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla Kong Supernova news roundup. In this one, we're continuing our chronological journey through the development of Godzilla Kong Supernova by talking about some updates to production, filming beginning, and a new working title, which might give us a hint on where this next movie's heading. Let's jump into it. I'm a little sick today and I've had a long day. My car's needing repairs, so I'm not feeling my best, but I'm gonna give this my best shot. Although, dude, I cannot believe it. Because I'm a little behind at the moment, and in particular because I've fallen like one day too far behind on my own timeline and schedule, I can't believe my last Godzilla news and updates from yesterday had a bit of a mistake in it. The Legend of Zelda live action movie was officially delayed, so it is no longer directly competing with Godzilla Kong Supernova, which is actually pretty good for the movie, but not good for me because I just posted a video talking about how they're going to be going up against each other. Although I do think that the general box office discussion I have in that video still holds some weight, so I'm leaving it out there. It's just going to stay up. In fact, at the time of me recording, it hasn't got up yet. It's going to go up soon, but we're just going to let it slide. Starting out with some artwork like usual. This first piece comes to us from GU0401 Earth, and this is their Shimo Ice Queen art. I think it's very cute. I love it when artists do goofy little stuff like this. Shimo looks adorable. I love her little ice dress, and I love her crown too. She's so cute. It's bringing out the puppy vibes of Shimo, and it reminds me of some of my favorite Godzilla artwork that I have covered on the channel. One piece that has always stuck with me was Kandagawa's Serizawa and the Titans artwork from back in the King of the Monsters days. Something about this piece has always stuck with me. I love the vibe of it. I love how cute it is, and this new one with Shimo has given me a similar vibe, so I wanted to show that off. This piece from Draferzilla is absolutely epic. It looks so awesome. This is the Battle of Rio. The scale of Shimo in this one's crazy. Shimo looks insane. I love this Shimo design here. I really like the spines on Shimo's back. That looks sick. Godzilla's also looking awesome. I love the way the energy's coursing through him, and there's so much detail on this piece. The beast glove looks really incredible, and I also really love those veins on Scar King's arms, showing how muscular he is. This whole art piece is absolutely epic. I think this one turned out amazing. Great job, Draferzilla. Spiral Studios announced their Hall of Fame series Behemoth. This $189 figure is slated for September, and it looks really good. I love to see the King of the Monsters 17 and counting getting some love, and this is a great one. Behemoth was the standout from the movie, so it's about time we get some Behemoth stuff. This Behemoth figure looks awesome. Great details running throughout it. The fur looks really, really good. The face looks pretty interesting too. I never realized the texture of Behemoth's face was so skin-like, but I guess it makes sense. I do kind of wish that the vines on the tusks were green, as I do think that they stand out a bit better as green in the movie, but overall, this Behemoth piece looks amazing, and Spiral Studios is always killing it. They continued the love, although only sort of, for the King of the Monsters Titans with their upcoming Spiral Studios Hall of Fame series Scylla 2024. It is Scylla, but it's not the Scylla from Godzilla King of the Monsters. As you can see, this is the red Scylla with the different design on the shell, so this is the one that appears in the New Empire, but still pretty awesome to see Scylla getting some love, and it looks really great. I love the posing they've given Scylla's tentacles coming out of her mouth. That looks amazing. I also did not know we would ever get this up close look of Scylla's butt. I don't think I ever needed it, but this is an incredible figure. The sculpting on this thing is amazing. It really truly does look like a living sea creature. They did a great job with this. Scylla's looking awesome here. The paint job looks great. I'm very excited about this. Unfortunately, I won't get it because it's too expensive. This figure is $219 and will be releasing in Q4 of 2025, so it's pretty pricey, one of their more pricey ones. Up next is their Godzilla Energized from the New Empire, looking so cool. I love the way they've drawn the blue throughout Godzilla here to make Godzilla have that glowing energy inside, and even better, this figure is painted up with glow-in-the-dark paints so that at night or under dark lighting, this thing illuminates like crazy, really representing the power of Godzilla Energized. Obviously, Godzilla 2019 is by far far my favorite MonsterVerse Godzilla design, so seeing this design get some love in this form is really epic, and I think that this figure just turned out really well. This one runs you $199 and will be releasing August this year. Great stuff. Matt Millard, one of the concept artists from Godzilla vs. Kong, continued to share some concept art from their time working on that movie. This first piece is their Warbat. I think it looks really good. It shows that the Warbats can kind of fold up their necks, although I wonder if this would actually be able to unfold into the full Warbat design we get in the movie, or if this was just one of the earlier working stages. Either way, nearly the final version of the design, and it looks absolutely awesome, and I really like the way that those head furls can coil here. Very King Cobra style. Their next one that they released is this look at their Mechagodzilla. Obviously, this is not the Mechagodzilla they went with in the movie, but this Mechagodzilla has a very, very intricate design. You can see all of those inner components. I think that this one maybe would have been a bit too hard to animate. Maybe that's one of the reasons they went away from it, but this one definitely gives that Terminator Godzilla skeleton vibe, which is what they were going for with the Mechagodzilla design in Godzilla vs. Kong. So cool stuff there. In a recent Godzilla X Kong news and updates, we went really in depth on the making of the new Empire and the behind the scenes for it, talking about all the Weta VFX featurettes that were released. Unfortunately, one of the Weta VFX featurettes was released and then shortly after taken down, and I never got a chance to see it. It was the Kong featurette, and the only thing I know about it is what you guys sent me on Twitter, which is that it was confirmed during this that Kong grew quite a bit in Godzilla Kong the New Empire. There's this big theory in the fandom that Skull Island has a sort of dwarfism going on. Of course, there are limited resources on Skull Island, and now that all of the Titans are radioactive monsters, unfortunately that's no longer just Godzilla's thing, but all of the Titans are radioactive monsters, and the best place to get radiation is from the Hollow Earth itself, so the Titans living on Skull Island really wouldn't have had the resources they needed to grow to the sizes they could have. Although it's also seemingly confirmed in canon that Kong does not have a height limit. The Kong species can grow infinitely, and then it's just whenever they die, that's when they stop growing, at least according to some people like Brian Duffield who worked on the Skull Island anime. But that means that Kong's just gonna keep getting bigger. I really like the muscle simulations they show on Kong as well. That looks awesome. But yeah, Kong did increase by 13 meters between Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla Kong the New Empire, meaning Kong in the New Empire comes in around 380 feet, which places him basically at the same exact size as Godzilla pre-evolution, and that also means that Godzilla after evolution grows a little bit too, because Godzilla still maintains that height difference with Kong. So Kong grows from somewhere between 330 feet to 355 feet, depending on what source you're looking at for Godzilla vs. Kong, and eventually winds up somewhere around 380 feet. That's a Kong who I think would absolutely wash a Godzilla 2014. I mean, I already think Kong from Godzilla vs. Kong would beat Godzilla 2014 in a fight, no real struggle, but man, a 380 foot Kong, even bigger than Godzilla, is gonna annihilate the dude. Poor 2014 Godzilla. But there you can see somebody even mocked up the height difference between the two Kongs, and he did grow quite a bit. Dan Mindel joined as the cinematographer for Godzilla Kong Supernova. My personal fave cinematographer is probably Larry Fong, who did Kong Skull Island. Just insane work on that movie. I think that movie's the most gorgeous film of the 2010s. I think it's beautiful. But Dan Mindel has some really good work under his belt. I'm gonna kind of go through this list from my least favorite to my favorite cinematography-wise, with one exception in the middle. But it does a little bit raise some concerns, because the bottom of the list here is Pacific Rim Uprising, a movie which I think generally looks fairly ugly. There are some absolutely incredibly beautiful sequences of that movie that I'll never get to show you because Universal is way overprotective of the copyright on that film. Like the scene when Amara is looking around the hangar and the Jaeger feet are crashing down during the Jaeger kaiju attack. That looks insanely good. Most of the movie, it lacks scale, it lacks color, it lacks any style. I think generally it's a very ugly movie, and I don't really think that's Middel's fault, as we'll talk about as we go through this list. The other movie is maybe, in my opinion, and this is harsh, but the ugliest blockbuster I've ever seen in theaters, and that was Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I thought that movie looked horrendous, and in both cases, I really don't think Mindel is the one to blame here, as a cinematographer's job is to be the director's eyes. It's the director's vision. It's what the director wants the movie to look like. Because I think some of his other work is fantastic. The Cloverfield Paradox, I thought turned out really well. I thought that was a very beautiful movie. It's been a couple years since I've seen it, but I do remember the way that the camera was constantly moving and the lens flares, and it was a really beautifully shot movie. I remember thinking it looked really good at the time. Twisters, which I have not seen, but I've heard really good things about the visuals in, is another movie that this DOP worked on. And then getting into the ones that I'm like, okay, now we're cooking. Star Wars The Force Awakens. Had no clue that the same cinematographer from that movie would go on to do Rise of Skywalker, because boy, they don't look the same at all. But The Force Awakens looks fantastic. It is a beautiful movie. It's got a beautiful color palette, a wonderful sense of action. I do think that there's a lot of scale in that film, and I do think overall it looks great. And the next one is, in my opinion, one of the most aesthetically pleasing blockbusters that has come out in a long time. It was like this own special class of beauty, and it's only just now being appreciated by people online, and that's The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a movie which, regardless of how you feel about it, aesthetically is the best looking Spider-Man movie hands down by far. That movie looks incredible. A lot of the visuals in it are absolutely top 10. The color palette, the style, the action, it is all beautiful. That movie has incredible cinematography, and that gives me a lot of hope, because that movie reminds me a little bit of Kong Skull Island. And so maybe we're in for a big treat here. It's gonna be up to the way that the director wants the movie to look. Having a good cinematographer goes a long way. As an example, you'd never know that the cinematographer of Marvel's The Avengers from 2012 was also the same cinematographer as Godzilla 2014, the darkest movie ever put to film, but it was. We have an interesting production update from Godzilla Kong's Supernova. Shout out to Kaiju14 for uncovering this. In this production update, we first of all learn right off the bat that the production title for the new movie is Zeus. I'll talk about that in a second here, but for those of you who don't know, that yeah, every movie kind of has its own production title so that you don't really know what movie's being filmed when it's filming in your town, and it's also typically a much shorter name than the final movie so that you can find the film easier when you're working as a crew member. Shooting was slated to begin on April 7th in Queensland, Australia, and as we'll talk about here in a second, it may have started a little sooner, but April 7th was the date. And also confirmation they will be shooting in Utah. So those previous rumors we covered in a news and updates not too long ago were true. They are shooting in Utah for this film. The producers for this movie are lots of MonsterVerse regulars, which makes me very happy. I'll admit, I don't know enough about how many of these people are still working on these movies. Like, for instance, Thomas Tull is listed as one of the producers for the new film. Thomas Tull is the founder of Legendary and had a huge, enormous part in bringing Godzilla 2014 to life. Is he being grandfathered in and is just being called a producer because he started the MonsterVerse and has some contract that still gives him credits the way that Yoshimitsu Banno does? And obviously he passed away years ago. It's very possible, but I don't know. Here are the producers we have listed, and they're all MonsterVerse regulars: Mary Parent, Alex Garcia, Thomas Tull, and John Jasani. These people were all responsible for phase 1 of the MonsterVerse, Godzilla 2014 through Godzilla vs. Kong. Some of them have had involvement post-Godzilla vs. Kong, but they're all back together now. That gives me a lot of hope that this movie might be getting a little more back into the phase 1 style of filmmaking. By that I mean like a stronger attention on the world building and the future storytelling beyond this next movie. But I don't know, I guess we'll wait and see. The writer for the movie is of course Dave Callahan, with the director being Grant Spatore. There's a little plot synopsis here. It states, the third installment in the MonsterVerse universe will feature several new human characters alongside Titans, Godzilla, and Kong as they face off against the cataclysmic world-ending threat. First of all, you might notice that this is not the third installment of the MonsterVerse. This will be the 6th movie in the MonsterVerse, but it is the third Godzilla Kong crossover, so I think that's what that production title is referring to. This is the third Godzilla Kong crossover. Also, the rest of that, it's what's been reported to the press and the trades, so we've covered that plot synopsis before. That's the one that circulates in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety, and anybody who writes an article about this movie uses that as their guiding synopsis. Finally, we learned that the Utah shooting will begin on July 21st and end on August 2nd, so not as much shooting in Utah as there is in Queensland, but it's still cool that they're shooting some of it here in the US, and I wonder what they're going to be shooting. Some of the movie seems like it'll probably be relating to Arizona, so they might be using Utah as a fill-in for Arizona. Why is it called Zeus? What does Zeus mean? Well, it is important to note that it might mean nothing at all. Sometimes a production title is just a production title. Godzilla 2014's production title was Nautilus. The USS Nautilus is the submarine that awakens Godzilla in the lore of Godzilla 2014. That's where that name came from. So it might seem like some of them have direct relations, but some of them don't, as Kong Skull Island was simply titled Titan while they were working on the movie. And yes, Titan became a very important term in the MonsterVerse and Godzilla King of the Monsters, but at the time Kong Skull Skull Island started, Titan meant nothing other than big thing. It's very possible that that title was picked without any meaning to Godzilla King of the Monsters. Godzilla King of the Monsters was Fathom, and although many of us thought Fathom would be the undersea base that Monarch worked in, the undersea base was called Castle Bravo, and Fathom actually meant nothing to the movie overall. Godzilla vs. Kong was called Apex, and that's the most direct link we ever got, as Apex Cybernetics is of course the main villain of Godzilla vs. Kong. And then Godzilla Kong the New Empire, I believe, was actually just called Godzilla and Kong, which is pretty unusual to advertise what the movie is so boldly and broadly. This new one, Zeus, could mean nothing, but I don't think it was picked for absolutely no reason. Even Fathom had a lot to do with the fact that we were going under the ocean, monsters from under the ocean. We were also taking Monarch under the ocean. We were exploring the Hollow Earth. Fathom meant something, thematically at least. The same way that Titan does relate to the size and scale and scope of the monsters, and later refers to their names in canon. Zeus very well could refer to a new threat in the new movie. I've seen a theory that I actually thought was kind of cool. Dangerville pitched this theory that Zeus is the one in Greek mythology who trapped the Titans in the depths of the underworld. Could the threat in this new movie be humanity wanting to trap the Titans in the Hollow Earth? That's the theory that Dangerville proposed. I don't think so, simply because where does Supernova come into that? Where does space play into that? But also, that's so derivative of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. That's the plot of that show. That's exactly what Lee Shaw's trying to accomplish. He's trying to trap the Titans in the Hollow Earth to make Godzilla's job easier. I won't discount it though, because Denkin Orju, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say her name, had a theory that bounced off of that using some of the concept art featured in the Godzilla vs. Kong concept art book. This first piece shows humanity itself dropping Godzilla into the Hollow Earth. Like, it basically looks like they're shoving him off a cliff into the Hollow Earth. The next one is actually the back cover of the art book, which features a man standing on top of a hill with Godzilla trapped inside, as if they've imprisoned Godzilla in the Hollow Earth. That actually doesn't line up with the lore of the MonsterVerse at all. If you actually dig into the lore of the MonsterVerse, the Godzilla species and the Kong species did have a battle in the Hollow Earth, it seems, and the battle raged on the surface as well, with the Kong species claiming Skull Island and in some ways driving Godzilla out of Hollow Earth. However, there are some other interpretations that say Godzilla maybe is the one who drove the apes out of Hollow Earth onto Skull Island, but that's not the case. As we learn in the New Empire, the apes still live perfectly fine in the Hollow Earth, imprisoned in their own tomb that Godzilla trapped them in. I don't know how he did that, but Godzilla imprisoned Scar King's group inside of the sub-Hollow Earth, the subterranean realm. Godzilla was not imprisoned in the Hollow Earth. He was the one imprisoning people in the Hollow Earth, and in some ways he was driven out of it. The Scar King versus Godzilla war is unfortunately not the same war as the Kong versus Godzilla war that happened in the past, but the lore is so complicated at this point it might just be worth moving on. I don't actually think we're going to revisit this concept art. I don't really know what it means, to be honest with you, because humanity, even in the lore of Godzilla versus Kong, did not trap the Godzillas into Hollow Earth. They just didn't. That wasn't a part of the story. I've seen some interpret that maybe the human figures are actually Kongs and the art is supposed to depict the Kongs trapping Godzillas, but that's not the way that Kongs are drawn on the rest of the art book. And even if, again, the Kong species didn't trap Godzilla in Hollow Earth, if anything, they chased him out of it. So it never really worked with the lore at all. It was just artwork. But I don't think it's worth abandoning that idea. Maybe the new villain will be a monster trying to trap all of the Titans in Hollow Earth. That very well could be. Or maybe, just maybe, Zeus is gonna be our working title. We don't know what to call him for now. Maybe Zeus will be our new villain. Let's say that there's a new monster, a monster that comes from the stars that harbors the power of lightning. Kind of like King Ghidorah, who came from the stars and had gravity beams, but I'm talking a little more mythological, a little more Greek mythological here. A Titan that has the power of Zeus, that comes down and fights Godzilla and Kong. A Titan that comes from the stars, or in this case we'll say the heavens, and fights Godzilla and Kong. Maybe this new Titan will have some biblical powers like shooting lightning. Maybe it'll be blue lightning to differentiate it from King Ghidorah. Maybe it will be another Ghidorah, and that's kind of, it plays into the idea, although I don't think it will be another Ghidorah. I guess Space Godzilla kind of shot some lightning out of his mouth, but again, I don't think it's gonna be Space Godzilla personally. I do think it'll be something similar to him though, which is what I'm saying. Maybe a new Titan god is coming and is gonna try and put our boys, Godzilla and Kong, back in their place and lock them in the underworld. I guess we will wait and see. The Australian News caught up with Kaitlyn Dever and talked to her about Godzilla Kong Supernova. While promoting The Last of Us 2, Kaitlyn Dever headed to Sydney, Australia for the premiere of this season. And there on the red carpet, she explains that she was already in Australia filming Godzilla Kong in Queensland, but had to leave in order to do press for Last of Us. If this was the case, that would mean filming began at least on April 4th or before, but I don't know, that production guide seems pretty set in stone. It seems like April 7th was the beginning of shooting, and what we're hearing here is that she flew in a little before April 4th, and they had been doing some pre-production work right before filming begins. Of course, there's table reads, there's rehearsals, there's all sorts of things that goes into a movie before it's time to actually shoot, so she could have been doing any of that. Finally, here we have our first photo from set on Supernova. This comes to us from costume designer Anne Foley, who shared a BTS photo of them with a bunch of the crew. I'm assuming these are all costume department for the movie. And it looks like a bunch of people just having a really good time. No spoilers, nothing to grab here, but it is awesome to see. Shooting officially began around April 4th to April 7th, and we have our first behind the scenes photo from set, giving us our first official look on the set of Godzilla X Kong Supernova. Not a ton can be gleamed here, but it is still exciting nonetheless. And I am very excited to continue to follow these set photos as they came out. Of course, you guys know on this channel, I don't cover leaks. I will not cover leaks in terms of plot leaks and things that come out of test screenings or script leaks or anything like that. This isn't a leak. This is somebody from set posting a photo, and when you can capture a photo of set publicly, when it's being shot publicly, the studios are totally aware that people are going to film that. They're totally aware people are going to post that, and in many cases, that's not considered a leak. And so I will be covering set leaks, as many people call them, as they pop up, but only if they were filmed publicly or if they were posted by an official crew member, and this one was. I do not want spoilers for the new movie. Please don't spoil the new movie for me. But here we go, late night shenanigans on a highway in the middle of nowhere in Australia. So I guess our very first day of shooting, or one of our first days of shooting, began on a highway. I don't know, is it gonna be a car driving down the road while a meteorite crashes in the background, or there's literally no way of knowing. But it seems the movie began with a night shoot. Well, that is where I will leave you for this one, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Especially big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It is through the support of the patrons on Patreon that I'm able to continue to make videos like this in the first place. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below, where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. If that's not your thing, please consider joining as a channel member. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out.